Over to you, Elsa.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 8th webinar, brought to you by Brandwin Business Support Limited, as part of the Brent Community Action Plan. Well, Brent Council engaged with Brandwin Business Support Services to manage the Brent BCAP programme. And there's 3 areas that we focused on. It was to enable and strengthen the community leadership through building capacity, support the Black community through a programme to strengthen procurement opportunities, and to provide support for employment and enterprise. To date, we have assisted several business owners to adapt and engage their business models that suit their needs via our one-to-one sessions. Well, this evening, the actual event is titled Circular Economy and Developing Key Partnerships. This will be delivered by Tony Mulvihill. He's a project management specialist and another consultant from Brandwin. Now, Tony is a member of the Association for Project Management, the chartered body for project professionals, an associate lecturer in project management and a leader in the circular economy. He's an avid networker and an expert in submitting successful bids. Well, this evening will be practical, realistic, and if you seriously want to understand this area of business, then get a pen and paper. We will be recording this evening's event, and may I ask you to kindly remain on mute throughout the presentation to allow our guest speaker to be heard. I'm going to ask if you've got any questions for our speaker, especially for Tony, to kindly write them in the chat section, and I'll gladly share them with him. So please allow me to present Tony Mulvihill. Over to you, Tony.
Great. Thank you very much, Elsa, for that introduction. Very kind of you to say great things about what we're doing. And particularly, thank you to Brent Council for sponsoring these sessions from Brandwin and delivering them to the Black Community Action Plan in Brent. So we're a series of webinars talking about differing activities around fit to bid and how to develop your skills. And one of the things that is becoming more important now is the circular economy and how to develop key partnerships. This is a growing area of interest, fits into the environment, social and governance agenda, which is ESG, which is becoming something that companies need to pay attention to and start to talk about. And even if you are a small organization, a micro business, maybe with 1 or 2 people, it's still important that you understand how you fit into the circular economy and how you play your part in the overall ESG strategy that the council at Brent will be looking to fulfill. So a little bit about me. I run my own consultancy called Planning for the Best. I've done that for over 3 years now and work with small businesses in West London. Member of the Parkwell Business Group committee as well, and I work with the businesses up in that part of London. As I said, I'm a member of the Association for Project Management. I work with Brandwin as a project management specialist to deliver topics around project management, circular economy, and also at the University of West London, where I teach a consultancy module and look at getting students from the theory in the classroom about what you might do with strategy, with logistics and supply chain, with project management, into the practicalities of making it real and using it for your own benefit and to develop your career. So that's what I do. For today's agenda, we're looking at the circular economy, and talking about what it is, how it works, how we transfer value between models. We've got the client case study as well that we'll talk through, and then we'll go into how we develop key partnerships. That's a critical part of the process. There'll be some exercises for you and an action plan to come up with. So as Elsa said, grab your pen and paper and be ready to write things down. If you do have questions, pop them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go. I prefer to do that rather than waiting to the end because things can get lost at that point. And we hope to wrap up by about 6:30 so that we're ready to move on to the final piece. So who are we at Brandwin with our Fit to Bid offering? It's how you go about winning more contracts. So with the seminars that you've been through with Elsa and other colleagues from Brandwin, this is all about moving through the procurement process. So how do I engage with procurement? How do I build up my capabilities, where am I now, where am I at the end of this program, what sort of topics do I need to cover in bidding skills, how do I write good bids that enable me to win more business. And that's where the sales enablement comes into that, is how do I grow my business through bigger sales, better sales, or better marketing. And there's also the tender advice. So there've been one-to-one sessions as well, where you've been able to talk to a brand new advisor and get direct feedback from them about the topics that are most important to you and your business. So that's in a nutshell what we're doing with Fit to Bid. And when we come down to the circular economy, we're starting to look into the supply chain and saying, how do we stop the throwaway society? One of the biggest challenges we have in the sort of environmental piece today in the throwaway society is the single-use plastic. So water bottles is the primary example of that. How do we move away from products like that that are used once and thrown away, and start to use them in a way that is environmentally friendly and enables us to recycle them? So the focus is on the green economy. It's on economic activities that support that green activity. Recycling of plastic waste is a way of enhancing, our credibility as an organization. And also we talk about enhancing our own well-being. The green economy studies show that being in nature helps you feel more relaxed, and is as good as a sort of a therapy session is an hour walking in a park, and that focuses on your personal health as well. And that transition into the circular economy is the development strategies you need to support your own economic growth, to allow your business to take part in the recycling, the reproduction, and the reuse of products inside this circular economy. So that's what we want to do. We want to get from that green economy, which is great, to the circular economy, where we're now moving things around and reusing them and recycling them. And if we think about where were we with this traditional flow, it's very much a case of take a product, make it, use it, and then it goes into the waste. So as I said, the plastic bottles, classic example, very high water utilization. So we take one of those, we use the water to create the polymers that make the bottle. We put water in it, we use it once, and we throw it away. And that's a lot of resource that's been just wasted on the back of that. So now what we're talking about is looking at those scarce resources that have been designed and shipped, so that we are using them for that limited amount of time, and we end up with them as landfill. So that's the things we're trying to get away from. So in our circular economy, it's about reshaping that, and it's a multi-dimensional activity, because we've got different ways that we can follow the path through this, and we can be returning things or reusing things, we can be recycling, repairing them, and we can continue to use them and return them and make them and recycle them. And examples are carbon dioxide cylinders. So if you're using a soda stream product at home that has a carbon dioxide canister in it, you can use that carbon dioxide canister many times before it needs to be replaced, and it's made out of metal. So instead of being replaced, it's scrapped and reused to build something else. So I have my soda water maker, I put my carbon dioxide in, I use that until the canister is empty, and then I go into the return cycle. And that's another way of keeping into the circular economy. And we've also got reuse and repair as well, where we look at reusing products. So the case study we talk about is about reusing pallets, but there are other products we can reuse as well and repair. So for example, we might have a phone with a cracked screen. We can take that down and we can get that repaired. We might have a laptop where the battery has a fault in it, so we can go and get that repaired, so that keeps our laptop going. And maybe when we get to the end of life of our laptop or our phone, we're able to recycle those and send them back to people who will buy those phones or those laptops off us, and then they will use that material to make new laptops. So it comes back from the take to the make. So we're not taking as much out of the environment, we're not using those raw materials as heavily, and we're taking the laptop components, the phone components, recycling them, reusing them, and making new machines with them. But even simple things like if you're a builder and you're demolishing or refurbishing a house, and maybe it's got an old bath in there that's metal with brass tabs, that's something that you can take and recycle and reuse that material as well. There is a good secondhand market in scrap metal, as I'm sure most of the builders on the call are aware. So again, that's a part of the circular economy. So you might not think of that maybe as a circular economy. You may just think that's something I always do, but you are in the circular economy when you are doing that. And by following this path, we're going to reduce the amount of waste we produce at the other end. So the longer we can keep a material in circulation and reuse it and repair it and recycle it, or even return it back into a construction or making or a manufacturing process, the less we need to take out of the environment, and also the less waste we have as well. And one of the other ways we can join the circular economy is through the use of food waste. Food waste is a industry where if you're in the hospitality business and you generate a certain amount of waste, there are now anaerobic digesters where you can send your food waste to. Some of them will pay you to take the waste because they're using that to generate natural gas on the back of the food waste that you're giving them, or they're using it to create compost or other materials like that. So your food waste has a market that you can sell it into. So you can use that as another way of getting into the market and using what you're taking. So you can now limit what you're taking. Your waste is reduced as well, and then you're creating value for everybody. So it's a great way of getting involved in the economy and making sure that your business isn't just about consuming products where you've got output that can be recycled, reused, repaired, returned. You've got many options now as to how you can return that equipment or that food waste, or even building people's building waste could be other people's scrap metal reuse. You can reuse aggregates, lots of different ways of doing that. So that value and transfer and exchange occurs when we repeat this cycle. So we use the take, make, and waste, and someone else's waste becomes someone else's take. And that's the example I was giving with the food waste, is that ultimately, I've got potato skins, banana skins, onions, other food like that. I can put that into an anaerobic digester who'll take all my food, and they'll generate get natural gas from that methane, and that methane can then be used in boilers, to heat boilers, or to do other activities like this that require a heat source from natural gas. So it's a great way of building into your thinking, ways of saying, how can I make profits, or not necessarily profit, how can I reduce my costs by using this waste to generate income? So we've got our fashion brands. We can recycle certain materials for insulation, the plastic bottles from recycled bottled water, they can be reused. We've also got recycled paper from printing that can be sent back and pulped up and recycled, and the metal from car parts, as I said, baths, copper pipes in houses. You may even have old cables lying around, and in those old cables you can have what's called bright copper, and that bright copper again has a market for that. Now you might not have necessarily the full capability to dispose of that waste yourself, but there are people out there who will come and buy your waste, and there are apps and websites you can visit that will allow you to sell your waste, your products, your phones, your laptops securely into that market to dispose of them. So it's a great way of getting involved in there and making sure that your outputs are someone else's inputs. So I hope that gives you a good insight into what we mean by the circular economy and the sorts of options you have. If you have any questions or you want to pop anything in the chat to ask me, please do. Yep, someone's saying just stop drinking bottled water, buying bottled water. That is another option, and that's more into the environmental protection piece. So that's slightly different from what we're talking about with the circular economy. If you're then sort of reducing your reliance on a particular product, then you're having an economic benefit. And sustainability is slightly different again, because that's where you're working with a product source that is sustainable, and something like shea butter and products like that are a way of enabling people to reinvest in the community, so those trees that produce the nuts are protected. It gives people work, it generates income for them and reduces food poverty and those sorts of issues that we see in countries where those nuts are grown. So there are different ways of getting involved in the different pieces. So in terms of our operational benefits, we can reduce costs in the way we source and operate. For example, with the laptops, you can now buy a remanufactured laptop that's using all the components from maybe 3 or 4 laptops that have been bought, remanufactured and put together for about a third of the cost of buying a new laptop. So if you're a small business and you're looking for somewhere to go that's going to give you a machine that does what you need, but at a much lower price, and that is a place to go to get that. It helps with your supply chain as well. So by having resilient supply chain and other ways of sourcing materials, you're not reliant on one source of the material, you're relying on multiple sources. So that helps increase that resilience. Compliance risk, as I said, there's many different ways of complying with the environmental, social, and governance framework. So there are, okay, sorry, just seeing that from one of the, use cut-off fabrics from small shops. How do I word this, or which part of sustainability is this? That's still part of the circular economy, Deo, because you're bringing that back in to your business. So somebody else's scrap is becoming your input. So it's their waste and your input, and that's part of your supply chain. Service industry. So question from Eric about company providing educational services to school. Depends on what you're doing, Eric, in terms of the service that you provide. So if you're providing books, for example, to schools, then if you're able to recycle, older editions of those books and keep them in circulation, that's one way of reducing it, rather than buying a newly printed book every year. But if you're supplying equipment and pens and papers and things like this, then you may be able to provide paper that's been recycled rather than brand new, freshly printed, unused paper. Workshops are in-person delivery and teaching. Probably for you, Eric, yours is probably going to look more than at the sustainability side of things. So how sustainable are this? Am I in terms of my carbon footprint, in terms of my electrical use, my other topics I use? If you've got a laptop, have you got a new laptop with a low voltage battery that doesn't need as much power as some of the older laptops require huge amounts of power to run them. So it's differing things like that in your space, but probably more sustainability and environmental reduction in greenhouses and reducing on that side of things. Looking at a question about lampshades made from recycled lampshades. So yes, so that is definitely a circular economy, because the lampshades are coming back to you, they're being used, so you're recycling them and sending them back out as something new but used, if you see what I mean. So I'm not sure what your branding is for that, but again, it's about something new from something old. And what we're seeing increasingly in the marketplace as well is that customers are rewarding businesses with loyalty and retention if they can demonstrate they are sustainable and that they are participating in the circular economy. And as I say, there can be simple things like you're a hospitality business, you run a kitchen, you can send your food waste off for recycling and anaerobic digestion. If you're in the lampshade business, you're buying up old lampshades that are not going to landfill and you're reusing them to get new materials and new shapes. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this, and you can be quite creative sometimes in how you go about achieving some of these things. So that's the benefits from doing this. And again, one of the big benefits is that the better your customer loyalty, the better your retention. You can open up new revenue streams to being able to sell old materials, and it gives you a stronger brand. So it positions you in the market as a brand that is environmentally conscious, and you've got the sustainability and the circular economy piece all built into that. And so we used to think about the 4 lenses of feasibility in the business model canvas. Can I do this? Desirability, who wants this, viability, can we afford to do this, are our revenues going to exceed our costs? And we talk about adaptability as well. So we're always innovating and looking to adapt to new ways of doing business. Well, now we have this additional lens that we're looking at, which is taking us through to the so I'll just skip through that, taking us through to the purpose. And now we're looking at acting with purpose in our business. And by having an environmentally sustainable policy, then we're looking at ways of making a positive impact on society and the planet as a whole. And again, research shows that particularly with millennials who are coming into the workforce now, they want to work with purpose. So if your business represents a brand that is dealing with environmental purpose, you're more likely to attract and retain staff who are interested in your ethos and what you want to do. Dayo's asking about certifications. Yes, there are different certifications that you can achieve with this, Dayo. It depends on what sort of products you're using. You may be able to use a Forestry Commission standard to say that all your products are certified renewable or sustainable. Different organizations offer up different certifications. If you really want to go further, you can look at ISO 14001, which is the environmental standard. That's particularly important if you're bidding for work with local authorities and companies that want that ISO standard. But there are many of them to choose from, and it's going to depend on the industry that you're in. And FSC printer, but what else is available? What do you do, Dayo? That would be my key question. Maybe that's something we can take offline and talk about that outside of here. But when we're talking about these ecological challenges, purpose is becoming much more important to us, and it's becoming a critical factor in how we go about doing business with purpose. It's environmentally safe and friendly, but is innovative and allows us to grow as well. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at here. And the other part that we talk about is delivering social value. So that's about impacting the social side of our businesses. And that could be about better things in the community. Care homes are a social service at the end of the day. If you're running a care provider and you're looking after someone's parent or somebody who's disabled who needs care that the family's not able to provide, then that's adding a huge social benefit to the family of that person, because they know they can rely on you to deliver a high quality service for that family. And I had one person I was talking the other day, 92-year-old mother, wheelchair bound, but the carers who come and look after them really do take care of this lady's mother, and she's really pleased with the service, and she feels it adds a lot to the quality of life for her mother. So that's one way that a social care provider adds social value to businesses. And it's about making a difference as well. So we can make a difference through the circular economy, the recycle, repair, reuse, remake. That's a great way of showing that we care for our community, because we're reducing the waste, we're reducing the impact on the community. So that's the overview from that. And the summary is all about thinking about an alternative business model. How can we operate a bit differently? We might be saving costs. We might be able to generate revenue on the back of something that we would have just thrown away at the end of the day. So if we have physical products, it's very important that we can look at, what else can we do to save those costs or generate those new market opportunities. We've got a more resilient supply chain, so we've got different ways of sourcing materials. And if we do something new and innovative, we can always look at commercializing that intellectual property that we create. And again, we might do something that's small scale, and we might think actually this has a viable commercial future. We've done some research into that. We've maybe talked to a university about knowledge transfer and got some ideas about that. And we may find a backer or even a company who would like to take on our IP and and market our product or make it or do whatever the intellectual property allows them to do. And also it helps us to drive the regulation and compliance as well. So we're talking about changing the way we act and changing the rules. We looked at access to talented people who are going to stick with our businesses, and they are going to help our businesses to grow. And one thing that's more important is, particularly with the local authorities, with Brent and Ealing and other boroughs in London, it's about being able to engage with local businesses and make sure that the economy that we're supporting is growing within our own local area. So it's more than just the big companies come in and they take over and they drive costs down and make things cheaper. It's about us working with local businesses as small businesses ourselves to support our community by working with others that we know and meet, so that we can form a network of businesses that understand how we can support each other in this circular economy. So that's the overview. There is a topic on this in the free London workshops around Build Back Better. You can go to readlondon.gov.uk, which is part of the process where you can apply for that and join those seminars. And there are other schemes that are being launched. If you talk to your local council, you may find that they have funding for environmentally related activities. In Brent at the moment, there's a lot of work going on to look at carbon footprints and understand how small businesses can utilize carbon tracking to understand better their profile and start to reduce their carbon. That's happening in Brent and Ealing, Hounslow, Hammersmith. They are all looking at different ways of doing that. So you can look to your local councils for more support in this area as well, because it's a key part of the green agenda and the green initiatives within the local boroughs. So one of the things we talk about this as well is that as a small business, if we're on our own and we're trying to work without any connections, we're a bit like the cheetah. We know it's the fastest land animal in the world, but it does hunt alone. They don't live in family groups. It's usually one or two animals together chasing beasts, but it's a short chase. It's very quick. They get tired easily. One of the biggest challenges they have is once they've killed their potential meal, they can't climb trees. A lot of big cats in Africa will climb up a tree and take the kill with them, and the cheetah can't do that, and they will run away from the larger cats. And their success rate is 50-50. And if we think about that, our business success rate when we're working on our own, if we're very good at what we're doing, we're still maybe going to be 55-57% successful with the initiatives we have. We're going to have almost an equal number of successes and failures. So it feels like, we're working very hard to get things right half the time. Whereas, if we're looking for sustainable partnerships and we're looking for ways of working together, we look at the herd of elephants and the way they work together. And the saying in Africa is that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And elephant herds, matriarchs, the older matriarchs know the trails, they know where the water holes are, they know where the best food is at which time of the year. So they will lead their family on a slow and steady journey around the plains of Africa, sourcing out the best foods and the best places to go for that type of journey together, working as a team to keep themselves as healthy as they can. So that's a way of thinking about it as well. If you want to be nimble and quick, you're probably working alone, but that becomes harder to sustain. Whereas if you're working together as a group, there's collective knowledge. There are different ways of thinking about how we approach our challenges that are presented to us. And there are lots of different ways that we can work together to succeed. And that's something that Brandon has been doing for many years now. We've been doing this for over a decade. And we work with many partners in Brent, in Ealing and Hounslow, Hammersmith. And you can see from the list of contacts we've built up, this has been something that's grown over a 10-year period or more. We've been doing this for a long time. We've been meeting with these businesses, working with them, week in, week out, talking about their needs, looking at what we can do to help their businesses succeed in their boroughs, in their organizations with the chambers of commerce. and others like this. So it shows that working together collaboratively, we grow and we grow and we grow, and we can build successful and sustainable businesses on the back of that growth. Okay, so a couple of exercises for you now to look through and think about this for the second part of the session is we're talking about how we go about creating these partnerships and transferring these values as part of our new economic model. And it's about looking at the ways that we can exchange value between the business models. So we create value through moving from the desired value, so the value that we look for in our partners, to the value we offer to our partners, and how do we integrate between those? So how's that transfer going to occur of value between ourselves and our partners? So that's what we're looking to do in this workshop, and how do we get to the point where we're talking to our supplier or our customer and we can move value between them. So why do we want to partner with these people? It's about expectations. What are our customers' expectations? How do we engage with customers? And it may be that somebody else has access to customers that might be good for us. And by working together with that partner, we can engage with a different type of partner in a different way. It might be also two companies working together to generate a specific solution. So it might be a technology company and a consultancy working together to produce a better solution for a technology product for the care home sector. We can also use this as a way of staying ahead of the combination, as the saying goes, many hands make light work, and if we have many people brought together to think about things, we can often come up with better ways of solving challenges. We can optimize our costs as well, so that means that we're not spending all of our time and activities where we don't necessarily have the skills, so we're partnering with those companies that have those skills that we would like to share. We get economies of scale. We can also look at ways of reducing risk and uncertainty by transferring them between the organizations. And there's lots of different ways that we can get those resources. So it's about marketing, supply chain, integration, technology, financial, all of those things are areas to focus on. And there are very different ways that we can make that happen. I find that when I'm working with small businesses and they're looking to revamp their operation and looking at ways of making their operation more efficient, they're looking for someone to come in and talk through the sort of supply chain and the integration activity and say, how do we integrate technology and supply chains into our business, and how do we do that effectively and efficiently without damaging our operation? But other partners I work with might be looking at a sales and sales enablement project and saying, well, how can this business grow and how do they shape up their future in that way? So it depends on why we're doing this, and always we ask ourselves, why do we want to do this? What's the purpose that we're looking to achieve? So in talking about that, it's about adapting your business model. So many of you will have done the business model canvas, and you'll have looked at how do you take your business model and transition it. So with your pen and paper to hand, have a think about, who are your key partners and who are your key suppliers. And sometimes partners are people you work with together. Sometimes the suppliers are your key suppliers of, could be if you're in the beauty sector and you use shea butter a lot, that could be an African supplier. Your key partner could be the manufacturer who takes the raw material and packages it all up for you and puts it into the tubs and the packets that you want to send out to your customers. And what resources are we looking for? So what do we need? Do we need marketing expertise? Do we need sales expertise? Are we looking for technology experience or manufacturing experience? What is it we're looking for? And what activities are those partners going to perform for us? So they're the different pieces on your business model canvas. So, thinking about this, think about 3 successful strategic partnerships, and you can pop your answers in the chat if you've got some of that to hand. Anybody have any examples of successful strategic partnerships? I'll give you another minute or so just to think about that. If you pop them in the chat, that would be great. Thank you. Deo, printer, local business, and a charity. Yep, that makes perfect sense, Deo. Looking at ways of working with that local printer, they become a strategic partner for you. They understand your brand. They understand how you want things done. So if you send up a printing requirement to them, they come back with something that's high quality every time. And working with charities, that's good. That's a strategic partnership. And how do you add value to them in that process? Thanks, Deo. So a second topic to look at with the exercise is about partnerships and who are the strategic partners and why is it critical to your business? So picking one of those strategic partnerships or suppliers, delve more into which of them are critical to your business, who are critical suppliers, which key resources do these suppliers or partners provide, and what type of partnerships would suit our needs. We may have one already, but we may be looking for something new. And as I say in the example of the laptops and the phones, it may be that we want to partner with somebody who is going to provide us with a steady stream of secondhand laptops, because we may be in the business of working with an educational company or educational college or someone like this who's looking to reduce their costs. So we can look at ways of partnering up with them to help reduce the cost of their technology requirement, providing them good quality equipment at a fraction of the price that companies charge today. So that's one way of doing that. If you're in the beauty business, it's about who is going to provide me with the type of product I need on a regular basis that supports the flow of my business. And that could be all sorts of products like, hair extensions or nail extensions or other topics like that in that business. So thinking about that and, just writing down what types of partnerships do you need that suit your needs. That's the critical part of this. Is about the type of business you're looking for, who's going to make your business better. I'll give you another 20 seconds to think about that. And when we sit down and have thought about that, is what assets are we wanting to leverage from our partners? So what are they offering us? And in Daya's example, the printer, it's access to their facility. So we're working with that partner. They're offering us their expertise as well as their facility expertise in printing, and a facility that we can turn to and we know that is close to us and works for us and does what we need when we need it to. So that's part of the challenge in identifying what are those assets, who are they, where are they, what do we need. And even in the service business, those assets can be people. For example, if you are a small business and you're looking at doing all of the roles in the business because there are just two of you, and you've got an accountant who's just doing your accounts for you, maybe they can do your bookkeeping, or maybe you can find a separate bookkeeper, or maybe you can find a virtual assistant who can do, sometimes even 10 hours a month of administration work can be enough to free you up to give you the time back you need to develop your business, win more business, meet your sales targets. And it's surprising sometimes that some businesses want to do everything, but just by investing a small amount of time in an outsourced operation to support their office administration, they can suddenly free themselves up to do things a lot more effectively, because they're not worrying about booking meetings and chasing phone calls and doing lots of activity that's important to your business and allows you to grow the business by meeting with contacts and clients and customers, but you're doing it in an organized and a manageable way. So again, it might not be physical assets, it could be people assets as well. And as a small business, if you're struggling with administration or struggling with bookkeeping, it may be an area to investigate for a key partner to sub out that activity. About students, are they in this partner too? I would say their students are more your client. If they're who you're working with and you're producing materials for them and they're coming to you to buy things from you, they're more on the client and sales side rather than the partner and feasibility side. Does that make sense? Oh, interns, right. That's a good question, because if you're partnering with a university or a higher education college like West London College or Harrow College and Uxbridge College, then it may be that you're forming a partnership with them where you bring in these interns for short-term work, 3 months, and you're transferring skills to them in terms of job skills and things like this. So your partner is the university or the college. You're working with their students to give their students the skills they need in the workplace, and then that's enabling those students to go on and have successful careers on the back of what they've learned with you. So I'd say your interns are a resource, and it's the colleges and the universities who are the key partners with you, if that makes sense. And I mean resource in the nicest possible way, in that they are great people and they're young and they're enthusiastic and they've got great new skills, and you're helping them to develop those skills further and take some of the theory they have and turn it into practical knowledge. Okay, so exercise 4, what does our partner value in us? So what leverage do we offer to our partner? So I think in Deo's case, what we offer our partner there is a trusted company that the college can go to with their interns, who they know will teach them skills, and that those interns will leave from that period of work with transferable skills that they can take into other workplaces. So Deo, in your example, it's you feeding back to the students how to work well, and that feeds back to the partner, the university or the college, about how do I then, I can trust Deo. I know he does a good job with my students. I'm happy to send some of my students to him because I recommend him as an employer with an intern for a certain period of time. So that's one way of looking at that. That's how we take our value and offer it back, and we're offering it back in terms of our skills and our knowledge. And for our interns, we're also paying them a wage as well. So there's that value that our interns are getting from that process, the payment and the skill set. So with other partners, that could be topics around, adding value to their business. So it may be that the partner doesn't have the distribution channel they need for their product, so we're offering them access to our distribution channels. And always need to be a bit careful with that sometimes around, disclosure agreements and sell-on clauses and what would we call them, sunset clauses, where you're not allowed, you have no compete terms in there that prevent the client, the provider, from competing with your customers for a certain period of time. But those partnerships work well. Sometimes people don't need to have a distribution network. They're happy to work through you because you're another outlet for them that expands their business. So there's different ways of looking at that. So there's some things to think about there. Where are you adding value back to the partner, and then how do we transfer the activities and resources, and what do we need for those to be a successful partnership? So we're collaborating, we're connecting, and we're making sure that we can see how we're adding value to our key partner, and we can see what the value is our key partner offers, and how we can utilize that effectively within our organization. So it's a two-way process. It's not just a win-lose or score-draw or something like this. This is a win-win situation. We're looking for a constructive, positive relationship that gives both parties the best. So have a think about, what key activities and resources do we need for a successful partnership? Could that be training? Could that be, utilizing certain materials? Could that be the as in the laptop example, we're buying those laptops at a reduced price, so we're getting value because we're able to run our training operation more effectively, and we've got a source for our customers potentially who could go to that supplier as well and use them as a source of the laptops. And we might even want to create a sales agreement with the provider to say, look, I'm dealing with these organizations and I'm teaching them how to use technology, but if I was able to resell your technology with a margin on there, then I would be happy to do that. And there's a commercial discussion about how those values transfer from your activities and their resources. And as that leads nicely on to, what are the expected outcomes? What's the return of my investment? So it may be that I've invested time in building up that relationship and generating that commercial contract, but the return on that investment is going to give me a different revenue stream for my business. So I'm not just doing training, I'm also able to provide equipment for the organizations I deal with, and I know the equipment's good, I know it's reliable, and I know that I'm going to be able to make a margin on that because I'm selling a product to that client as well. Obviously, you need to think through the commercial implications of it, but it's one way of making sure that the value is transferred between the partners. So what's going to be the result of that? The client, the key resource, the partner, you're selling more of their products, so they've got an uplift in their margin and in their turnover. You've got your resale value, and also you become a bit more trusted because you've got more to your offer than just a one product. You've got different income streams that you can utilize. So sometimes it might be that you've done the training 2 or 3 times, but it's the revenue from the sales stream of the laptops that increases, or it could be that the laptops lead to more training opportunities. So you need to think about, what am I getting back on this? So that's the return on investment with this particular arrangement. So always think about the commercials, think about your numbers, think about what's my turnover, what's my gross margin, what's it costing me to run this business, and what's my net. Looking through those numbers will enable you to say, okay, how much am I making on this particular deal? Is it worthwhile? Do I pursue it? So our agreements, touched on it in the previous slide, they can go from simple to complex, and it depends on what we want from the business and the outcome and how we want the 2 businesses to be engaged. We need to make sure that we've got commercial terms in there, that we've understood who's involved in this process. Is it just the 2 of us? Is it my company and my supplier, or is it my company and 2 suppliers? Is it my company and a supplier and a logistics person? How do we know who's involved? What is each partner going to provide? What does that look like? What are the terms? So how do we make sure that we understand who gets paid what and when? What reporting do we need to have in place? Who's the contact person? How long is this going to be for? What do we expect to see and when? So the outcomes, the expected outcomes of what we want to see. When do we want to see it? They're the milestones, the due dates for these things. And within that timeline as well, how are we going to report and update on this? One thing we want to avoid is your products are always faulty. We want to say, well, how do we report back? When do we let you know that, we're not happy with the quality of the process, or that we need something different? So that quality control and audit is built into that. And these contracts need to be signed. It's really important that you get that. So when you put these commercial agreements in place, you've got the right information there to protect you and your partnership through that legal documentation. And with our supply chain, there are many different ways that we can collaborate in this. So if we think about it, there are 11 boxes there. So there are all sorts of different ways we can get involved: emissions, waste, facilities, shared operations, lots of different ways of investigating this. The slides will be available, and the recording, the presentation will be available as well afterwards. And probably not quite enough time to run through all of this, but these are different areas that you can investigate, and you don't have to do them all at once. You can look at them in piece by piece, depending on the amount of resource you have available. If it's you as a sole operator, more difficult to do this on your own, but you can pick off key pieces along the way. if you're using products for distribution, maybe you can look at third-party logistics and look at ways of, getting involved in the supply chain there. So there are different ways of getting yourself and your partnerships together in order to transfer value between the organizations. And this has a great impact on innovation because we are bringing in outside experience and outside thoughts. Then we're collaborating externally, and we're looking at alternate markets. Whereas if we tend to operate within our corporate walls, we don't experience as much growth because ideas get bound up inside the internal mechanisms, and we're just focusing on our existing markets. What we're trying to do with open innovation is break down those barriers and expand our thinking outside of the corporate walls into those new markets and those new opportunities through these key partners and suppliers. So that's some sort of divergent thinking there, where we're looking at ways of getting out of the kind of tunnel vision that focuses just on our existing market to expanding into different markets. And an example of this is an old example, but it's one that's still pertinent, is that older cars will have carburetors in them. Newer cars have fuel-injected engines. There are many companies that have gone broke and gone out of business as a result of being focused on their carburetor manufacturing, and that caused them to get shut down when cars moved from carburetors to the fuel injection model. But it was something that could have been foreseen in the business, but people chose not to adapt to it, and they weren't looking outside of their existing market to say, what else do we have? And Nicola Horlick had that as well when she was working for an audit firm in her early years. She said one of the big things she saw with manufacturers in the UK is that a lot of the companies she went to had Marks and Spencer's as their main customer, and their main market was Marks and Spencer's, who in some cases provided from at least 50 to 75% of the company's turnover. And when Marks and Spencer started shifting their manufacturing operations and sourcing overseas, these companies simply went out of business because they had no customer. So again, one of the things to think about with your innovation is, who are my customers? How many do I have? And how can I open up my innovation so that I've got different markets to protect myself in the instance that one of my customers decides to walk away from me? If my biggest customer walks away, what's the impact on me? How do I protect myself against that? How do I diversify my customer base, my market base, my product? That's what we're talking about with open innovation. And in our case study, we have Ruth and Ian from the Pallet Yard Limited. Ian started his business by driving around and picking up pallets that were lying around unused. Over 10 years later, he has a very successful business with Ruth. He and Ruth have brought this together into a highly successful business run from Southall, so not too far away from where you are in Brent. And it's been a growing business because there's a market for this product, and they collect the pallets, they repair them, and they send the pallets back out to other organizations who want to use the pallets. So pallets last for a long time. We can bring them in, reshape them, send them back out to customers. And sometimes companies buy in a load of product and they're on pallets and they're just left in the yard and they have no longer any need for them. So rather than them being skipped or put into landfill, you can take them back and you can reuse them many times. And then one of the things that they've done recently is they've thought about DIY projects with this as well. So you can take pallets, you can see in the picture there, you can use an old pallet to create furniture, and it's very trendy and fancy, but that's one way of reusing those pallets. You can use them in your garden if you wanted to create like a walkway in the garden or something like this. You can use pallets instead of paving stones, just as durable, but less of an economic environmental impact. So different ways of using your product for that, and continuing to recycle products in the economy. So Ruth and Ian are buying and recycling the pallets over and over again, and we don't have any labels on them, but it'd be interesting as a case study to see how many times the same pallet came through their yard over a certain period of time. So that's the example there. And just thinking about this, the process, it's a fairly organized process. We want to sit down and work through this in a methodical manner. What's our business challenge? Do the market research. Why would we partner with these people? Who would we partner with? Take out the partnership canvas and draw up what we're looking for in that. Shortlist our partners, identify the key partners we think we could work with, have discussions with them, talk to them, understand what they do. If we think we can work together, let's design a partnership. Some of it could be manufacturing, some of it prototyping things, some of it could be technology, where we're bringing it together, test experiment. Is there a market for this? Can we use it? And then we want to refine that and continue on with that and relaunch that in the market. So when we're thinking about questions, it's like, who are our key partners? Who are our key suppliers? Why do we want these people? What are our key resources that we're getting from a partner? So in Deo's case, it's the interns. How does the emission side come in? So Deo's asking me about that. So emissions are more about environmental sustainability there. So that's about measuring your carbon output, your pollution output, and looking at ways to reduce that. So that's more on the kind of sustainability and environmental protection side rather than the circular side. But some of it can be circular as well. So for example, with the food waste, if you're using the food waste in an anaerobic digester and you're taking the methane that would have been produced anyway if it had been sent to landfill, then you're reusing some of that to produce less methane, maybe a bit more carbon dioxide. But if you've got carbon dioxide scrubbers installed in your plant, then you can also capture some of that carbon dioxide and turn it back into water. So there's lots of different ways of reducing your emissions, but I think I'm fairly certain, but I'll check afterwards with Elsa and Elsa if Brent are doing any emissions of work at this point in time as well. So that's the sort of summary of that, and we have the business model canvas, and these artifacts are available for you to go away and work with as part of your business planning activities. So what's your action plan? What actions have you come away with from this? If you can write those down and make a note of them, that would be brilliant. And I think, Elsa, it's back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Wow, what can I say? At the end of the day, there's so much in today's session, and I think how can I say, you brought everything to a really good close in the end. And it's all about growth and, as you're saying, looking at different ways to partner with people. So I am just so grateful for you giving such a in-depth presentation around the circular economy and developing key partnerships. So thanks again, Tony. Really, really thankful for that. Can I just ask again if anyone's got any burning questions or anything they want to ask Tony at this time before we actually close? Okay.
Are people able to unmute themselves and talk now?
I think that's going to Nowza, not myself.
I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks everybody for coming along. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and take you through this. And the materials are available on the Brandon YouTube channel as well, so that will be published. And also, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to drop me an email. You can reach me, tony.m@brandon.co.uk. You can email Elsa, and we can come back to you with more information.
Yeah, so thanks again to everyone. Thanks again.
Just open up a chat. If anybody wants to talk to you,
lovely.
to do so, please. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Nelson.
Hi, Tony. Thank you very much for that. That was really nice.
Okay.
And thank you for organizing Elsa. Is it Elsa? Did I?
Elsa, yeah.
Elsa, yeah. Thank you very much. I'd like to be able to ask, I don't want to hog the screen too much. I'd like to ask a few more questions, but it looks like it will. How can I reach out to you? Do you want to put your email in the chat, or should I put my number in or something?
I'll just pop my email in the chat.
Please. Thank you very much. It's really, really great. These sessions, I've really enjoyed them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Daya.
I just want to thank everyone for being part of it, because the 8 sessions have been extremely useful. And yeah, the one-to-ones have been really exciting. But as I said, tonight's session with Tony just takes it to another level. So then you can see, as I say, you see the true understanding of partnerships and also the circular economy. So anybody else got anything they'd like to ask or share at this time? You see Tony, they're saying it's amazing. So
Yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm smiling away here. Thank you, Elsa. Very pleased.
No, it's all good.
Very appreciative of the feedback.
And yeah, the genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm truly feel humble as a result of that.
Tony, could I just mention a point? Actually, it's not a question as such. It's Leela here. Hi.
Yeah, so I know what the problem is. I can only see a certain number of screens, so I can't see who was speaking.
Yeah, Tony, I thought it was really valuable, the point you made about having different income streams, being able to identify different markets as well. You know, I mean, a partnership working is about collaboration, but it's, you know, it's a very I don't need to tell you. I mean, everybody knows it's a very competitive market, economic and social market out there at the moment as well. And I think the point about diversification is a really important one. The example you used about Marks and Spencers, you know, who would have thought, you know, a big sort of player like that, you know, by not you know, sort of not being able to sort of deliver, meant that certain companies had to close, or you know, shut down.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Leila, and a lot of this is because businesses are so focused on doing really well for the customer that they have that they sometimes forget that it's just their only customer, and they need to think about, well, who else should we have as customers? Where do we go to understand this? And part of the kind of ongoing management process is making sure that you understand, who are my top 10 customers by revenue, who are my top 10 customers by margin, how am I succeeding with these? Because I think part of the challenge is that yeah, businesses lose track of that, and all of a sudden they find that number 1 customer has disappeared for some reason and they have nowhere to go.
Yes, thank you for that, Tony.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Leila.
Okay, I've just put Tony's email again in the chat because someone's asked for it. But just to remember and remind you all that this evening has been recorded, and the recording will be available via our YouTube channel, and the link's been put into the chat. So unless anyone's got anything else to say, as I say, it just takes me to say thank you, Tony, for sharing such valuable I can't say it. I mean, words. I mean, I'm lost for words.
It's unusual, Elsa. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel privileged to be able to meet with this group that you've talked of so highly as well, about the time that you've had working with them. So thank you for that.
Sorry, before you go, is it the YouTube link? I didn't see the email.
It's in the